A verdict is expected today in one of France's largest ever prosecutions of sexual abuse. A former surgeon is facing up to 20 years in prison for almost 300 counts of sexually assaulting or raping people, most of them children. The case has shocked France and raised questions about why he wasn't caught earlier.
A devil in a white coat. That's how prosecutors described Joël Le Souarnec. During a 3-month trial, the 74-year-old former surgeon confessed to sexually abusing hundreds of patients, most of them children. He admitted responsibility, but claimed he did not remember his acts. Prosecutors have asked for a 20-year prison sentence.
In light of the facts and the seriousness of the case, we had no choice but to seek the maximum sentence. Everyone expects this sentence.
From 1989 to 2014, at hospitals across Western France, Le Souarnec sexually assaulted young patients, many while under anesthesia. Some of his victims are no longer alive to see justice served. This family's grandson died of a drug overdose after he was abused.
He took my grandson from me. This must not happen again. All of those who do that, they have to know that they're going to pay the maximum price, that's all.
Protesters rallied outside the court during the trial, angry that health authorities failed to stop the doctor. He continued practicing until his retirement, despite being convicted in 2005 of purchasing images of child sexual abuse.
For me, it's important that all those people who didn't do anything face strong condemnation or are held accountable. It's important for the victims and for society to show that no one is above the law and that children must be protected.
Le Souarnec is already behind bars for earlier child abuse convictions. A further trial may still be held to deal with even more accusations against the man considered one of France's worst ever sexual abusers.
Joining us now from outside the courthouse in Western France is our correspondent, Rosie Burchett. Rosie, a verdict is imminent. Tell us more about how the trial went.
Gerhard, so many disturbing details emerged during this 3-month-long trial. Joël Le Souarnec was discovered by police just a few years ago when he was accused of sexual assault by a neighbour involving their child. Police then went to his house and discovered all sorts of evidence, many of it really too disturbing for me to share with you here, but they discovered journals in which the former surgeon had detailed his rapes and sexual assaults of almost 300 people over several decades. Police then went to tell these survivors, victims, in many cases who were not aware that this abuse had been perpetrated against them because it was perpetrated while under anaesthesia. So you can imagine that was also very disturbing for the survivors to discover. Now, they have been calling for all sorts of reforms in light of this. Joël Le Souarnec has asked for no leniency. He has admitted to all these crimes, but some of the survivors have felt that his apologies, his asks for forgiveness, have been somewhat mechanical. In each case, he has admitted to it. But they would like, what we've heard from survivors is that there is simply no sentence which could rise to the level of the pain and damage that he's caused.
Now, you just said these attacks went on for decades, and survivors and their families are outraged that no one, and especially health authorities, stopped this man. How was this possible?
Exactly. It's been described as something of a laboratory of different failures. This man was convicted of downloading child abuse images back in 2005, but he continued to work after that. Now, that was a suspended sentence, and the hospitals which hired him have said during their testimony that there was no instruction with that sentence for them to tell him to no longer practice with children or to no longer practice whatsoever. So they have sort of shifted blame away from the hospital sector there. But of course, there's also been calls for reforms on a national level. The survivors here have called for a special parliamentary commission to be opened into this to try and work out how these failings could have happened. And that's something we haven't heard yet from the government about action on, but we know that the French Prime Minister has promised in general to set up a commission for victims, a special counsel, because of course those survivors are the ones that know which points of the system have failed them so miserably.
Now, the trial comes on the heels of the Gisèle Pellicot mass rape case last year. Is there more of a reckoning going on in France when it comes to sexual assault?
That is what survivors had hoped for, but Gerhard, what we're hearing from them is that they are bitterly disappointed. While the case involving Gisèle Pellicot sparked mass media attention around the world, this case with its 200 victim survivors has sparked much less attention. I mean, just this morning, we are still a few hours ahead of the verdict, but I've only seen one or two other TV journalist teams here, and you can imagine usually in a trial of this nature, you might be expecting to see many more. And I've spoken to people in the town of Vannes, here in Brittany, in Western France. They said, you know, there's a real sense that they just don't want to talk about this. The facts are so disturbing, and they've told me that they feel that this surgeon is really the shame of the Brittany region.
DW's Rosie Burchett there reporting from Vannes in Western France. Thank you, Rosie.